Hello Skele Vaderites and friends of Skele Vader. I'm so excited. As you saw from the intro video, I took a trip to Target and I ran into two exciting things. Actually, there were several things at this particular Target that were pretty cool. But the first thing that I ran into was this Skeletor Stranger Things Demogorgon 2-pack, that had a clearance tag on there for $24.49. And as you saw from the intro video, I got this thing for just over $10. What an amazing deal. I'm saving this for later because I have something really exciting to show you all. So the item that I did end up picking up is something that I've been highly anticipating. It was released recently, but online the Neca Haulathon says it's supposed to launch April 11th. And people have been finding these in stores. And if you watched The Frenzy, you saw that our friend Sean Scavarna found one of these out there at Target. So I had to go take a look, and sure enough, Count Von Count from Neca. This is an ultimate action figure. This is volume 3. So of course I have the Bert and Ernie already, which you've already seen. I'm going to compare those in just a little bit, but man, this Count Von Count is something that I and a lot of my friends have been really excited about. Now the Count was really a special character because he didn't show up in every episode of Sesame Street, unlike Big Bird and Oscar the Grouch and Bert and Ernie. He would show up every once in a while, and that made him very special from my perspective as a kid. He was sort of a special treat, like a cameo. And here are the numbers, folks. If you are interested in getting this for yourself, you can look online. I didn't have any luck finding him through the app, but I did find him in the store. So get out there to your Targets, folks, and see if you can find this Neca Sesame Street Count. Let's get him open. Okay, so we got the Count out of his box, and I just want to point out an interesting little thing, and not to start off with a criticism, but the box comes with the same internal background art that Bert and Ernie came with, and it makes sense to have Sesame Street, this image of Sesame Street for Bert and Ernie, perhaps, especially with Big Bird and with Oscar the Grouch. Actually, Bert and Ernie could have probably had the interior of their apartment instead, but it would have made sense to have the inside of Count Von Count's castle for this background art instead of the street scene. But having this background art is really sweet and nice. It just would have been cool to have the inside of the Count's castle. Now he comes with this amazing satin cape. Look at the paisley design on the inside of this cape. It's just incredible. What an amazing print. And then back here, his collar is of a similar texture to the fabric, but it is plastic, which is a nice addition. You don't have to mess around with keeping his collar pointed up. He has these translucent wrist bracelets that can keep the cape attached to his arms or his wrists, which is very cool. He comes with two different heads. This is the head I chose to put on him. And he comes also with this more sort of chill face, I guess is the best way to put it. He's like in between sentences with this face, and this one he's being very enthusiastic, and I like this one. But I want to point out a few amazing details with these head sculpts. First of all, you've got this monocle that is a translucent plastic painted silver around the edge. And then his eyebrows connect to the top of his nose and are actually lifted off of his face, which is the same design of the way that this Muppet was made. I love that his nose and his eyes and his ears and the hair all look like separate pieces that were Velcroed or glued onto the foam head. And of course you can see the famous foam Muppet texture here. He is beautiful. Love his little goatee. It's so funny. Now, little on a personal side note, as a kid, I really liked the Count, not only because he was based on Dracula, which I was super fascinated with as a kid, but also because he reminded me a little bit of my grandfather. The eyebrows, the widow's peak, but the low forehead and the way he combed his hair back and that distinct nose definitely looked like my grandfather on my dad's side of the family. So he reminded me of him as a kid, and I still carry that memory with me today. Here on the cape, you've got a little latch. You can put that back here behind his head. There is a little tiny slot right there where you can put this in. And that fits right in there easily. Now that's not going anywhere. And his hands, we'll remove them in just a little bit. But right now his hands have this sort of expression, which is cool. But he also comes with a gripping hand for this candelabra. This candelabra is amazing too. For those of you that like to set up your stages for toy photography or simply for your display, this candelabra is a nice thing to have. A hand that can hold that here. And then he has a pointing finger, which can be the number 1, the 2 fingers here, which is the number 2, and of course the 3 fingers, which is the number 3, and another gripping hand. And I think what I'm going to do is simply leave his hands open like this, but I'm going to put these wrist bracelets over his hands right now. Now, the Count also comes with this rotary telephone that was behind him or next to his chair where he'd be sitting sometimes when he was talking to the camera. That is really incredible and definitely a throwback to the Palisades accessories we would get from Palisades when they had the license for Jim Henson Muppets. And this number 2 is really fantastic. He's got kind of a frown here, which is adorable. And I think they could have done his eyes sort of, instead of the eyelids diagonal to the sides, maybe diagonal to the center to make them look angry or concerned, since he has a little frowny mouth here. Now he has same thing with Bert and Ernie. Bert and Ernie have this sort of flexible waist with a soft plastic for the shirt, and so does the Count. The Count's waist is flexible and a flexible jacket there. These amazing shoes with the white spats. Very, very, very cute. Love that. And let's see how the Count looks next to Bert and Ernie, because I'm excited to start displaying these guys or taking them out to do toy photography. They look fantastic with one another. Count Von Count is really a spectacular figure from Neca, and I could not be happier. Now to do a little comparison, I brought this penguin that I found. This is based on the 1966 penguin, but I believe this was for the animated, more recent animated movie, I think, that came out. But this is a McFarlane 6-inch penguin. It looks just like Burgess Meredith, but I pulled him off the shelf because of the monocle, because it's not often you get monocled action figures. And then of course I gotta give a shout out to Super 7 for their 3.75-inch Kenner style reaction Count Von Count here. And then of course the amazing Fisher Price Little People Count Von Count right here. I'm so happy to have 3 Counts, and now Count Chocula here. and he kind of fits perfectly with these characters. But yeah, what a wonderful selection of characters now. As you may already know, this is an extension of the Palisades line of Jim Henson Muppets, and it's so fantastic that they're sticking to some of the same aesthetic choices for the figures themselves, giving us all of the Muppet textures and fabrics and making them look like they were made by the Jim Henson workshop. So cool. Yeah, I mean, it kind of makes sense. These foam Muppets were always a little bit bigger than the Muppets that were simply fabric, like Kermit here, and Gonzo was mostly fabric except for his foam nose. But these were the smaller Muppets and these were the bigger Muppets, and they look great together. This guy is amazing. It's so cool to finally have the Count from Neca. Get out there and look at your Targets, people. This is for the Neca Haulathon at Target. So you're gonna check out the figures or the collectibles that are in the collector's spot, but also I'm seeing that they're showing up on little cardboard standees and even end caps too. People have been posting pictures of that. Get out there and get this guy. He is spectacular. He is one of my favorite characters from Sesame Street and definitely now one of my favorite action figures as part of my collection. As you all know, I'm a huge fan of Sesame Street. I'm a huge fan of the Muppets, and I love characters that are reminiscent of or homages to the Universal monsters, and this guy does it all. The Count is spectacular. I'm definitely going to keep this head sculpt on him. I like this other head sculpt and I might, change it out down the line. Maybe I talked about this a little bit with Bert and Ernie, but I want to talk about it a little bit more. NECA figures have improved quite a bit in the last 10 years. They feel very sturdy. The joints feel very tight and also like they won't break. But the one thing that scares me every time I'm messing around with these figures is taking the heads off and giving them their alternate heads, because pulling the head off is a little bit easy, but putting a new head back on is very difficult. And with this monocle and with these eyebrows, the delicate elements of this particular action figure, it scares me quite a bit. So I'm gonna leave this head on, I think, for probably the rest of my life. I am very excited about this. Oh, and I also forgot to mention that his cape has a wire articulation, so you can make it look as if the wind is blowing his cape back, which is very, very cool for dramatic toy photography if you want to. Anyways, folks, the Count is amazing. I'm super excited to have been able to find him. I was a little worried I wouldn't be able to find him. And folks, get out there and pick one up for yourself if you can. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching. Do click like, and if you haven't subscribed yet, definitely click that subscribe button and click that bell notification so you can get notified every time one of these videos pops up. And if you are a Patreon, and if you have contributed gifts to the channel, you are on the Patreon list at the end of this video. Thank you so much for contributing. You know who you are. And if you want your name at the end of each one of these videos, then either reach out to me or sign up for the Patreon. It's only $3 a month. Oh, look at that. $3 a month. So thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you in the next video.